I don't get the
alpha plus beta and the cosine of alpha plus beta, and then tell you what quadrant alpha and plus beta is in.
This is where we use triangles.
This is where we use triangles. Well, once you get the two triangles done, you're all set, because it all just then falls out, because it's plugging in. So let's do our triangle for alpha. There's alpha. I'm told that the cosine of alpha is 3/7. So what does that mean in terms of my triangle? It's the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So this side we'll call x because we're going to need it. We have sine of alpha somewhere in this process. So I have x squared plus 3 squared equals 7 squared. That gives me x squared plus 9 equals 49. So x squared equals 40. That means x equals plus or minus the square root of 40. But I'm talking about a triangle here, so length is positive. Bless you. So this is the square root of 40. But what I really need, because my formula is going to require it, is what is the sine of alpha? Well, based on the triangle, I can get a number. What is the number for the sine of alpha? Square root of 40 over 7. But the triangle doesn't tell me whether it's positive or negative. Alpha's in quadrant 4, and in quadrant 4 all sine values are negative. So this is going to be negative square root of 40 over 7. Now we'll do my triangle for beta. I am told that the sine of beta is 4/5. So I have 4 on the opposite and 5 on the hypotenuse. We'll solve for the third side here. We'll have y squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. So y squared plus 16 equals 25. That gives us y squared equals 9. So y equals plus or minus 3, which is the square root of 9. But we've got a triangle again. Length is positive. So this side of our triangle is 3. But what I'm going to really need is the cosine of beta. Based on the triangle, what will it be? 3 over 5. But we got to determine its sine based on the quadrant. Beta's in quadrant 2. Quadrant 2, cosine values are always negative. So it'll be negative 3 over 5. All right, now, I'm only going to do this, the first two, figuring you guys can fill in the second two as well, the 3 and 4 or 5, or I guess 4, 5, and 6, and I'll tell you how to figure that one out. All right, sine of alpha plus beta. According to the formula, what is that? Sine of alpha times the cosine of beta plus sine of beta times the cosine of alpha. Well, what's the sine of alpha? Square root of 40 over 7. Negative, yes. So negative square root of 40 over 7. I replaced all of the sine of alpha with that number. What's the cosine of beta? Negative 3/5. Again, replacing all of the cosine of beta with that number. Plus, sine of beta was 4/5. And the cosine of alpha was 3/7. So I end up with negative square root of 40 times negative 3 is 3 times the square root of 40 over 35 plus 12 over 35 as my answer. And you can just type that in, yeah, to WebWork. Actually, you can even just type that into WebWork. What about the cosine of alpha plus beta? Well, what's the formula say? Cosine of alpha times the cosine of beta minus sine of alpha times the sine of beta. All right, well, I replaced the cosine of alpha with its value, 3/7. The cosine of beta was -3/5. Minus the sine of alpha was -√40/7. And the sine of beta was 4/5. So this will give me -9/35. This negative and that negative can become positive. 4 times the square root of 40/35. So that's the answer for the cosine of alpha plus beta. Now, based on these two answers, I can answer this question. Alpha plus beta is in quadrant. Well, what?
Because it's not bigger than 4 times 3 to 40.
So why does it matter?
Because cosine is with the x, corresponds with the x. Whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah.
If the sine is positive, then no, it's not.
Okay, so I think what he's getting at is the sign is obviously positive. So that means I'm either in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2. To determine which one, I have to determine if this cosine is positive or negative. And he said all I need to know is -9 bigger than 4 times the square root of 40? Well, the square root of 40 is approximately, oh, you should know, approximately 6. Close enough. 6 is good enough, right? Because that's the square root of 36. So this is going to be 6 times 4. So that'll be 24. 9 is clearly, -9 is clearly not going to change that to be negative. So this is positive, that means I'm in quadrant 1. If this was positive and this one was negative, I would be in quadrant 2. If they're both negative, I'd be in quadrant 3. And if the sine is negative and the cosine is positive, I'd be in quadrant 4. That's all it takes to determine which quadrant I'm in. So that's the process you'll use for doing this one. Figure out are you positive or negative and then determine the quadrant.
Wait,